What's up, mobile devs? Today we are going to build from scratch, as usual, this smooth dropdown in React Native, using simply the Reanimated package. I was heavily inspired by a Twitter post with this animation built in Framer. I will add the tweet in the video description. Before moving forward, if you like building animations in React Native, you can support me on Patreon, where I upload the source code of a new animation every week. For previews, you can also follow me on my Twitter profile at Reactive. Recently, I've been working more and more also on reactive.io, so if you prefer the written version of this tutorial, you can find it in the video description. With that said, let's finally get our hands dirty. So here I've created a React Native project with the Expo CLI, and as you can see, I've already added a few constants. So you can see that we have the options and the header, and we are going to use them later in order to build the drop-down menu. So in the package.json file, you can see that I've already installed the reanimated package, the vector icons package in order to display icons, and the color package that is going to be super helpful later since we are going to manipulate a bit the colors. So since we're using Reanimated, please don't forget to add the Reanimated plugin inside the bubble.config.js, otherwise the project basically is not going to work as expected. So that said, I think that we can already start to update the background color right here. We can get rid of this text and we can fix the status bar color. So we are going to define here the drop-down menu. It will accept the header and the options as properties. Of course, right now React Native is complaining, and that's because we still need to define the drop-down component. So let's create here. Oops, it is already created by me previously. Okay, perfect. So here we have the components folder. Let's create the drop-down component file. And let's define here the drop-down as a React functional component. And for now, let's simply return a React Native view. So let's export the drop-down and let's import it right there. So here TypeScript is complaining, and that's because we still need to define the header and the option properties. So here, let's copy this object and let's define there the drop-down item type. And here we can define the drop-down props as header of type drop-down item type and options as an array of drop-down item type. So let's pass these props right there. Let's take the header and the options. So TypeScript is not complaining anymore. But of course, nothing is displayed on the screen, and that's because we still need, we are still returning the same React Native view. So let's try to fix that. First of all, let's wrap both the header and the options in a single array that we are going to call drop-down items. Let's add the header and the options there. Here, let's simply map the drop-down items, and let's return a view with the, let's take even the index. So let's reload. Okay, so of course we need to style these views. Let's say 100 as a width, 100 as a height, and let's fix just a white background color so we can start already to see something. Let's add also a margin bottom, and I think that it is perfect. So the drop-down right now is displaying the drop-down items. So for now, of course, the single drop-down item is very simple. We simply have a single view. But on the long run, you're going to see that this component will start to get really complex. So in order to avoid complexity, let's start to create even a separate file for the drop-down list item. So let's create it right there, drop-down list items. And let's simply copy this data. So let's take a view from React Native. Let's export the drop-down list item. And here, let's fix the key right there. So here we need to import the drop-down list item. And here we are. So let's check what is missing. So inside the drop-down list item, we need, of course, to add the properties, the drop-down list item props. And basically, inside the drop-down list item, we are going to need the drop-down item type. So let's take it, this one, and paste it right there. Let's define here the drop-down list item props as drop-down item type. And let's export the type drop-down item type in order to import it right there. So of course right now we have fixed width and height with dummy values, but we need to fix that. So let's even take the drop-down list item props here, the label and the icon name. And let's start to fix the style of the view. So the point is that we want to have here the 95% of the window width. So let's retrieve the window width. And let's say window width multiplied by 95 as 0.95. Let's fix even the height. So let's define here the drop down list item height as let's say 80. And let's fix here the background color. So let's reload, and that's fine. Let's also add the border radius. Okay, and it looks great. So of course we are going to animate these items right there. And the point is that in my opinion, it's much more easy to animate these values, these items, by updating the position. So right now we are working with the position relative, but in my opinion it's much more easy on the long run to work with the position absolute for this kind of animation. So let's convert all this data, all these properties in order to get the previous result, but this time with position absolute. So of course width and height are going to be as they were previously. But we need to play a bit with the top property. So the top property will be strongly related to the index. So here we need to import index. We need to take the index from outside. So we need to access the index from the drop-down list item. So here let's pass the index and even the item. Okay, perfect. So we can see here all the items right there. Let's also adding the margin equal to 10. And that's almost fine. So at this point it's a good idea to translate and to center everything at the center of the screen. So the point is that we need to know how many items do we have right there, and we need to shift back all the, we need to evaluate then the full drop-down item height, the full drop-down height, and we need to displace all these items by the full drop-down item height divided by 2. So let's do that. It's going to be super easy. So first of all, let's add here the parameter as drop-down items count. Perfect. And we are simply retrieving the drop-down items.length. Let's copy this value right there, and let's add here the type. So here we go. So of course we need to evaluate the full drop-down height. That is going to be equal to drop-down items count multiplied by the drop-down list item height. So that's strange. So plus the margin. So basically it's simply drop-down items count, so the amount of drop-down items multiplied by the height and this margin. So let's avoid here the capital F. Let's translate all the items. And we are good to go. So, of course, nothing is changing, but we have completely updated the kind of position that we were referring to. So, right now we can start to work with the two states. The point is that the animation is going to have two different states. The first one is going to be the collapsed state, and the second one is going to be the expanded state. So we are going to play a lot with this top value, and we can start to define there the collapsed top property and the expanded top property. So here you can see this one is definitely the expanded top, but we need to work on how it should be when all the items are collapsed. So let's add here collapsed top, and to keep things simple, I'm simply going to write full drop down height divided by 2. Let's simply center it. Okay, right now it looks great. And we are going to animate these two values. Of course, in order to animate, we need a bunch of ingredients. First of all, we need to convert this view into an animated view. We need to move these two values inside the reanimated style. So especially we need to remove top from there, and we need to create the reanimated style with use animated style hook. And here let's return simply top, and for now simply expanded top. So let's add the reanimated style and let's reload. So right now my computer is lagging a bit, but you can see that everything is working for now. But we need to have a kind of state, we need to access the current state of the dropdown. And in order to access the proper state of the dropdown, we need to define outside the state variable. So let's call it isExpanded as a shared value of type false that starts with initial value false. So at the beginning, the dropdown will be collapsed and then it's going to expand. We need to pass this property to the dropdown list item. And we can retrieve the isExpanded animated shared value of type boolean right there. So here we know that if it is expanded, if the dropdown is expanded, we want to assign to this property, to the top property, the expanded top value. Otherwise, we want to pass the collapsed top. So we are almost done. So of course the initial state is the collapsed state, but we need to find a way to toggle the this value, this isExpanded value. Otherwise, the animation will not work. So in order to do that, of course, you can use some touchables, some pressable as you want. To give things easier, in my opinion, it is fine for now to simply use the onTouchEnd callback from the animated view. And here we are simply going to toggle this isExpanded value. So let's reload. And we can see that everything is working nicely. Of course, we want to add an animation. And the easiest way to do is simply by using the withSpring high order function from Reanimated. So, and that's quite magical as always. So you can see that it is animating itself in a very easy way with this kind of spring animation. So there's still an issue right there, and the issue is that we just want to toggle the animation while we are tapping on the header. So here it's fine, but here, for instance, it shouldn't toggle the animation. We can super easily fix that. We can simply create a variable right there that is called isHeader, and we know that the initial value of the array is going to be our header. So we can add, we can check if it is the header if the index is equal to 0, and we can simply toggle if it is the header. So here right now is not working anymore, and that's because the order of the items is not correct. So all the items are stacked one on the top of each other, but the point is that the header is the last item. So we need to fix that, and the easiest way is to play with the z index value. We want that the header is always on the top. So of course this approach suggested by Copilot should work, but we want to fix the order for all the items, not just for the header. And in order to do that, we can simply use the drop-down items count minus index, and in this way the priority will be increase. So the first item will have the highest priority, the second one will be the one with the second highest priority, and so on. So hopefully this is clear. So we have updated the top, we have animated the top value. What we need to do, we simply need to play with the scale animation. So of course the collapsed state isn't fine. We need to fix the collapsed state, and in order to do that, we need to play a bit with the scale value. So since we are going to touch the transform array, since we are going to play with the scale, let's move all this transform array inside this reanimated style. And let's start to work on this scale value. So as we have done previously with the collapsed top and expanded top, let's define here this expanded scale and collapsed scale. And here we want to fix, let's simply use the isExpanded value, and as previously we are going to show the expanded scale, otherwise the collapsed scale. So for now both values are identical. The point is that in the collapsed scale we don't want to have all the items with the same scale. In the expanded scale we want this kind of behavior, so we are simply going to update the collapsed scale. So the trick is that this value is strictly related to the index itself, and the point is that if the index is equal to 0, so if we have the header, we want to keep the scale equal to 1, otherwise we want to decrease slowly the scale of the item. So if the index is higher, we want that the scale decrease slowly. So here Copilot is doing brilliant work, and it is suggesting right. So in this specific case, by increasing the index, the scale will decrease. Let's check that. So for a second you can see that something is working nicely, but here we have kind of messed up the order in the transform array. So we want first to scale the item, and later we want to translate it. So of course the order inside the transform array is crucial. And here we go. So let's increase a bit this the index. So that's too much. Okay, I think that this one looks great. Of course, we want even there this spring transition. So let's wrap everything with this with spring high order function. And here we go. Let's decrease a bit. Oops. Okay, 0.8. Perfect. So the last thing that we need to animate is simply the background color. So the point is that in the collapsed state, we want to play a lot with the background color. We want to update the brightness of each drop-down list item. Otherwise, in the expanded state, we simply want to get this exact color. So as we have done previously with the top property, with the scale property, here let's play with the expanded background color. it is going to have simply the default value and the collapsed background color. And here, let's add the background color, and let's copy the code that we have used previously. So maybe we can wrap it with the higher order function with timing this time. I think, in my opinion at least, it will work better, but of course feel free to use whatever you want. And let's start to work with these two separate values. So of course it is a good idea also to remove the background color from there, since the background color will be automatically applied thanksfully to the reanimated style. So as mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial, we are going to manipulate the color, and in order to do that, the best thing to do is to use the color package. So let's import color from color. So here it is. And let's start from the expanded background color. So we want to update the brightness of the color, and in order to do that, we can use the lighten function. So if the index is increasing, as the index is increasing, we want that also the brightness is increasing itself. So let's simply add this value suggested by Copilot. In this specific case, therefore, the header will have the same brightness as there was previously, since we are not, the index of the header is going to be 0. Otherwise, we are slowly going to increase the brightness. And here, let's return to the hex value. Let's get back the hex value. So you can start to see effectively some change. Let's even increase the brightness. Let's say 0.3. I think with the 0.25 it is perfect. So we are almost done. We can let's update a bit the drop down list item height. Okay, maybe 85 is fine. And at this point, we can finally start to add the remaining information inside these items. So let's wrap here everything with a view, and this view is going to be our container view. So let's add here the styles. Let's use style sheet from React Native. Let's define the container. Let's say styles.container. So here I think that we still need to import style sheet from React Native. Okay, and let's specify container with flex1. Here let's add the text. Let's say styles.label, and let's add the label. So I believe we still need to import text from React Native. Okay, we're fine. And we need to define the label style. So here, let's enter the label with align items and justify content. And let's update the label color. So it will be white, maybe almost white, not a perfect one. Okay, we can increase the font size. Let's apply text transform uppercase, and let's add some spacing. Yeah, I think it is almost fine. Yeah, right now it is fine. So yeah, I think that for the label everything looks great. Let's even add the left icon and the right icon. So let's start by adding a view that is going to be our icon container. So here let's define the icon container, and we are going to have width equal to 50, aspect ratio equal to 1 since we want a square. Let's use the position absolute, and let's apply here black background color. So let's add also the border radius, and let's add the left property equal to 15. So here we are. So maybe we can decrease a bit the window width. Okay, that's fine. So let's add the icon right there. And we are simply going to use the Expo Vector Icons package, and we are going to use the ant design icon system. So here, let's rely on Copilot. And we need to center, of course, the icon. So let's use the justify content property and the align items property. So I feel it's almost fine. Let's decrease a bit the size. And I think like it's really good. So we simply need to add the right icon. So let's reuse the same style more or less. And let's apply here right equal to 15. So here unfortunately it's not working, and that's because maybe we need to remove left equal to 15, yeah. And that's simply in order to make it reusable. So the point is that we want to use the same styles.icon container even for the second icon container. So it is better to move off the left property outside in order to apply there the right property. And here we are. So regarding the problem with TypeScript right here, it is pretty normal. The point is that the icon name is simply a string, but the type for the undefined system icon should be really strict. So it's not worth it, in my opinion, to fix this TypeScript issue, and we can close our eyes and assign any to this icon name as type. Probably not an ideal solution, but at least it's going to work. And let's fix there the background color. And let's apply the icon. So here we want simply an arrow. We are not interested in this icon name. So we can fix that, and we can simply use the material icons. So let's, for now, let's use this arrow forward. And let's use the same style and the same color. So it is almost fine. The point is that we want simply to have the arrow forward for the items that are not the header. So if it's the header, we want a different icon. We want the arrow forward iOS. Okay, that's perfect. And here at the end, we simply need to rotate this icon when the drop-down is expanded. So basically, when we toggle back the drop-down, we want that this icon is pointing to the bottom. So we are almost done. We simply need to achieve that. And in order to achieve that, we need to update this view into an animated view. So we are going to apply an animation, of course, in order to achieve this result. So let's, I believe, yeah, here we need to close the component, or maybe it wasn't there. Yeah, it was there. Okay, perfect. So let's create the const reanimated header arrow icon style with use animated style hook, and let's simply return transform, and let's play with the rotate. So basically, if it is expanded, we want to rotate it of 90 degrees in order to point to the bottom. Otherwise, we don't want to apply any rotation. So let's apply this tag right there. And we can see that it's working fine. Of course, it is also fine to apply a with timing high order function. Yeah, I think it looks better. So there is just a tiny detail right there, and the problem is that here, for instance, we can see the icons. And I feel like we can very easily get rid of this issue. So we can simply create another animated style. Let's say reanimated icon opacity style. Let's say reanimated left icon opacity style. And here we want to return opacity if it is expanded. So if it is expanded, it should be equal to 0, otherwise it should be equal to 1. Of course, it shouldn't be an header, because the header should always be fully visible. So the left icon of the header should always be fully visible. So here let's add the dependency. And let's pass this reanimated left icon opacity style right there. So the last thing is that this one is a view. We don't want a view, we want an animated view, otherwise the reanimated style will not work as expected. And let's do that, and let's reload. And we have kind of messed up the condition. Yeah, so if it is expanded, the opacity should be equal to 0. And that's actually... okay, so if it is expanded, the opacity should be equal to 1, otherwise in the collapse state it should be equal to 0. Okay, but the header should always be visible. So if it is the header, and so if it is the header, we always want the opacity equal to 1. Otherwise, if it is expanded, we want the opacity equal to 1, otherwise 0. There is, of course, a better way to write that, but that was the trivial solution for me, the easiest solution for me. So I hope actually that this tutorial was clear and was fun. Actually, right now that I'm noticing it, we are making a tiny mistake. Basically, we are rotating even the header arrow icon for the other items. We want to rotate just for the header. So let's fix that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I know this tutorial was not that trivial, but I think that the end result is quite awesome. The animation is really great, and there are a lot of things going on behind this simple drop-down menu. So I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any ideas for upcoming content, feel free to suggest that in the section below. If you like this kind of tutorial, this kind of animations, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you really want to support me, please consider to even subscribe to my Patreon account. So thank you very much for staying with me all along, and see you to the next one.